Hello everybody! Today we are going to talk about literary genres and subgenres. First of all, I explain you literature definitions. What is a literature? Literature means book and other writing, usually by expert authors. If you understand what is a literature, now I explain you what is a literary genres. And a literary genres is a type or category of literature. What are literary genres? Literary genres refer specifically to book and other types of media, such as movies. And many book stories organize large quantities of books according to literary genres, such as classics, mystery and fantasy, poetry, fiction, non-fiction, drama, and the prose are the 5 main genres of literature. Writers can then further categorize their literature into subgenres, and the subgenres are smaller and more specific versions of genre. Various genres possess their own features and functions, and understanding what major genres are a work of literature belongs to can enable a deeper understanding of the work, and the genres allows form of the literature to be classified according to form, content and style. Major genres include poetry, drama, fiction and non-fiction, and each of these categories can be further broken down into subgenres. And classifying literature by genre helps foster the study and understanding of literature as a whole. And now I explain you the main genres categories. There are 4 main literary genres: poetry, fiction, non-fiction and drama. The works within each genre share certain characteristics that place them into the same category. Let's talk about definition and example each one. The first one is a drama. Drama meaning is a type of literature what is written for the purpose of being performed in front of an audience. This type of writing is written in the form of a script, and the story is told through the lines of characters played by actors. And the next type says fiction is a story that didn't actually happen in real life. And non-fiction is writing that is real and factual or that actually happened. And the poetry is writing using language and sounds in the special ways to express ideas. And if you understandable these main genres, now we will learn subgenres. And you know what is a subgenres? Subgenres is smaller group or category. And understandable in these main genres names, let's talk about subgenres. First we will learn drama subgenres. And the drama has 2 categories: comedy and tragedy. And the first one is a comedy, a funny or humorous drama with ending and a happy ending. Example, the Comedy of Errors by Shakespeare. We can also see television and movies. And second one is tragedy, a sad drama with a sad ending. Example, famous tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. Next big types is fiction types. And the fiction type subgenres, first one is fantasy, a story in a fantasy world. Fantasy novels are speculative fictions, stories with imaginary characters set in imaginary universes. They are inspired by mythology and folklore and often include elements of magic. The genres attract both children and adults, include Alice's Adventure and Wonderful by Lewis Carroll, And the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling, you know, Harry Potter world, magic and fantasy. Yes. Next type is folklore. Folklore, old culture stories include fairy tale, fable, myth, legend and tall tales. Every country has its own folklore. One famous example, Baba Yagi. Baba Yagi is Russian folklore, and you know, Zumrat Kamat is Uzbek folklore. And the third one is a historical fiction. A fiction story based on real history. One famous this type of fiction take place in the past and centuries, a plot around accurate details of the time in which it takes place. And the historical fiction relies on real life history to propel a novel or stories, key details and plot. Authors commonly use historical fiction to retell a historical events while changing minor details like characters, names or the events settings. And this fiction often involves tradition, customs of previous periods, and it can include actual historical features and settings. Writers composing this genre of literature typically perform heavy research so they can depict their chosen historical period successfully. Yes, and the example of historical fiction, the novel Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This story takes place during the Civil War in U.S. history. The first one is mystery, and is another subgenre of fiction. Mystery novels, also called detective fiction, follow a detective solve a case from start to finish. Okay, they drop clues and slowly reveal information, turning the reader into a detective trying to solve the case. Mystery novels start with an exciting hook, and they keep readers interested with suspenseful pacing and the end with a satisfying conclusion that answers all of the readers' outstanding questions. And you know, mystery is a story about a crime. Yes, crime. And the fifth one is realistic fiction. Realistic fiction novels are set in a time and a place that could actually happen in the real world. They depict real people, places, and the story in order to be as truthful as possible. Realistic works of fiction remain true to everyday life and abide by the laws of nature as we currently understand them. And one famous example is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And this story take place and the story about Charlotte Bronte's life. Another subgenre of fiction is romance or a love story. And if you understand about these types, I explain the next type, science fiction. Science fiction story is a future with advanced technology. Science novels are speculative stories with imagined elements that don't exist in real world. Some are inspired by hard natural science like physics, chemistry, astronomy. Others are inspired by soft social science like psychology, anthropology, and sociology. Yes, common elements of sociology its science fiction novels include time travel, space exploration, and the futuristic societies. Yes, and the example is the Hunger Games by Susan Collins. this story takes place about 100 years into the future. Sometimes science fiction can confuse it with fantasy. The main difference: science fiction and fantasy. Science fiction is a future world involved with new invention and technology, but fantasy impossible happen. Next one is the thriller. And you know what is a thriller? And the thriller is a story that make readers nervous or excited in this type, excited or even scared as they read book and anything. Yes, thriller novels are dark and mysterious and suspenseful, plot-driven stories. They were seldom include comedic elements, but what they lack in humor, they make up for in suspense. And now we will talk about next types, non-fiction subgenres. And the main non-fiction subgenres divided 4 main groups or categories. And the first one is a biography, autobiography, narrative, periodical, and reference. And the non-fiction. The non-fiction category is a genre in which writing genres from academic papers to create works. Non-fiction can be used to inform, and it can also be used to tell a narrative stories, like in an autobiography or memory. And non-fiction writing aims to inform or inspire the audience by using actual events, people, place, or facts. Students can gain a deeper understanding of fiction text through non-fiction texts, such as textbook and maybe essay. And before writing a non-fiction piece, non-fiction authors typically conduct extensive research. Here are a few of the subgenres of non-fiction features and life features. And autobiography is a personal narrative of one's life. Autobiographies may serve a variety of purposes, such as helping the authors overcome difficult situations, assisting people in overcoming similar challenges, or simply conveying stories. And the next one is biography. And you know what is a biography? Biography is account of a person's life written by someone else. Many biographies features notable individualism, yes, such as celebrities, athletes, business leaders, and politicians. And an essay is a short piece of writing in which the author elaborates on an idea or topic after conducting through research. An essay may aim to engage its readers, influence their thinking, get them involved in its ideas, or persuade them to adopt the same point of view. Next genres is poetry. Now we will learn also poetry subgenres. And the first one is a poem is a piece of literature that makes use of rhythmic qualities of language, such as phonetics, sound, symbolism, and matter, and convey meaning. Phonetics, examining the aesthetics appeal of the sound of certain words or part of words. And sound symbolism refer to the non-arbitrary relationship between the sound of speech and their meaning. And a meter is fundamental rhythmic structure of a poem or lines of poetry. A poem's matter, rhythm, and its focus on the sounds of syllables, words, and the phrases distinguish it from other type of literature. The purpose of poetry is to convey meaning through imagery and metaphors rather than provide complete, grammatically accurate sentences. Depending on the style of the poem, poems can range in the length from the few lines to several pages. There may be one author or several poets who contribute to a book or poems. Here are a few subgenres of poetry. The first one is epic. Epics are long verse narratives retelling the heroic journey of an individual or a group of individualisms. An epic typically features superhuman feats and extraordinary adventures, highly stylized language, and a combination of lyric and dramatic elements. Next one is a narrative. A narrative poem tells a story through poetic techniques such as rhymes, similes, and metaphors. And narrative poems are longer than other forms of poetry that contain a complete story similar to a novel. And next one is lyric. Lyric poems are short, highly musical verses that express powerful emotions. And a lyric poem is a personal expression of emotion written by a single individual. And next one is a dramatic. Dramatic poetry is poetry that's written in verse for public recitation of performance. The purpose of dramatic poetry is often to express one's thoughts aloud to another actors, oneself, or an audience. And if you understandable in these all genres and subgenres, literary genres, now I tell you some sentences, and you may find the sentence names. It is fiction, non-fiction, biography, autobiography, like this. Understandable? Let's begin. A story about plants that come to life. Next one is a book about the life of a famous soccer star. And third one is encyclopedia entry that describes vitamin E. The fourth one is the humorous play The Taming of the Shrew. And the fifth one is a long poem about a hero named Achilles. And the sixth one is a weekly newspaper called Main Street Times. The seventh one is a sad play about the character Oedipus Rex. The eighth one is story about lives in the year 3023, and the ninth one is a poem about the girl's ideas about friendship. The last one is a story about characters who lived during World War I. And let's check your answer. The first is fiction fantasy, and the next one is biography, and third one is reference. Yes, the fourth one is comedy, and the fifth one is poetry. It's epic subgenres, and sixth one is the non-fiction periodical, and the seventh one is drama type subgenre strategy. Eighth is science fiction, and last one is fiction types of history. Yes, and our literary genre and subgenres practice for today is completely. I hope this video helped you understand what the literary genre and subgenres. Thank you for your watching. See you. Goodbye.